Hello, and welcome to Module 3. Module 3 covers chapters 4 and 5, Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. And there's a lot of interesting topics related to civil rights and civil liberties. In essence, what we're talking about are civil rights being protections by the government, concepts like equality and justice, and the importance that government ensure this. For instance, if you look at something as simple as the right to contract, what you'll see is that governments quite often are necessary to enforce the right to contract. You make a deal with someone, and if you're not the more powerful person in the deal, you need to be able to go somewhere where there needs to be some expectation on the part of the more powerful party that there could be consequences to not doing what they say they're going to do. Well, this extends in many different issues of our interactions, right? First of all, if you have a person who promises to paint your fence, or you have someone who promises to let you live in a house if you have signed a lease, then it's really important that they don't just show up one day and say, get out. And how do we do this? Well, we have regulations, and these regulations are integral to our sense of civil rights. We don't often think of these, but making sure that people get treated the same when their conditions are the same is probably the main focus of government. And in recent years, of course, this has extended to ideas like making sure that despite your race or your gender or your national origin or your sexual orientation, that people who do business with you or people who interact with you don't discriminate against you. And really, for much of the history of government, this was not the responsibility of the national government. The United States government took on this responsibility mostly during the 20th century. Prior to that, this was seen to be a state responsibility and one that not every state took seriously. Civil liberties, though, are different. Civil liberties are protections from the government. They're things that government can't do to you. Quite often, things like freedom of speech, the freedom to own a handgun. The government doesn't provide you with a gun. The government can even regulate guns somewhat. But you've seen that it's very difficult, even when political winds are blowing in another direction, to make it absolutely impossible for someone to own a gun. Now, when you extend this to ideas like freedom of speech, one of the things you'll note is that civil liberties are not protections of people from the feelings of others. They're not protections of your business relationships in most cases. If you wore a tag that said meat is murder, the United States government and the state of Georgia, they can't arrest you for that. But you probably could be dismissed by Burger King. I don't know, unless they're doing an Impossible Whopper promotion, I suppose. And so what I've done is I've created a list of civil liberties that are in the U.S. Constitution, and you'll see that alongside the slides for chapters 4 and 5. And you might have some questions on the final exam. You might have some questions on the quiz that are like, what is a civil liberty that's in the First Amendment? And if you refer to that list, you'll be able to see, or I suppose you can memorize all 6 of them. So some people say 5, some people say the 5 freedoms, but in this class we've separated the Establishment Clause, which says the government can't establish a religion, from the Free Exercise Clause, which guarantees people the right to, or the liberty technically, to engage in religious worship. So if you look at that, there's several cases involved in civil rights and civil liberties that you should make yourself familiar with, particularly Brown versus Board of Education, but there's some others. Um, there's a Lemon test. It was a Supreme Court case. Lemon versus Kurtzman is one of the key terms. So you should make sure that you're familiar with the key terms. As you look at the civil rights and civil liberties, one of the things that is really interesting is to look at the historical development of people's civil rights and civil liberties. And so there's a lot of heroes that we talk about: Rosa Parks, A. Philip Randolph. If you look at the module, you'll see there's 2 optional videos for you to watch if you want. They're no longer part of the discussion section of the module. They were for years. I love these videos. One is A Knock at Midnight. It's a speech by Martin Luther King, one of the ones that's a little less famous. I tend to make this a little bit larger portion of the class when we're teaching it in winter semester, spring semester, because Martin Luther King Day is usually right around the time we get to Module 3. Also, there's a video called Rise from the Rails, the story of the Pullman Porters, and their importance in the development of civil rights in the United States. But this semester, I've decided to go in a slightly different direction, and I have a video for you to watch related to speaking to the police when you're under investigation. In fact, this James Doan, the person who you're going to, or James Duane, right, who you're going to be watching the video, he actually debates a police officer, and it's not much of a debate. The police officer agrees with him that basically you should never talk to the police when you're under investigation, that you should always ask for an attorney. And they'll make the case why. And, you know, maybe people will give you other advice in other places in time, but this is the advice that a lawyer would give to his clients. And then you're going to write a discussion about it. There will be a quiz, and I'm encouraging you all to make sure that you do all the reading and watch the slide presentations before you take the quiz. A couple people, I think, make mistakes where they lose points because they're pretty sure they know all the material, and so they don't do all of the reading first, and then people get scores like 6 or 4 out of 10, and they're like, what's the matter? And I say, well, you know, you took this 2 days into the module. Did you do all the reading? And, you know, I actually, it's a little difficult to get to, but I can look to see all of, you know, what you've actually accessed in the course. And, you know, I did this and I checked it for a couple students, and they hadn't completed all of the aspects of the module, and they just went ahead and took the quiz. That, you know, that's going to have a bad result for you. And I hate to mention it, because for the most part, we've done pretty well this semester so far, albeit we've only finished 2 modules. But I strongly encourage you to actually engage the material. If you do, you'll notice the extra points start to add up. And I don't think that we take a summer class with the goal of getting C's and D's and B's, right? I think we ruin our summer with the goal of getting, and I guess we're not ruining our summer. What could possibly be more interested in than learning about American government? Well, in any case, I wish you all well. If any of you have any questions to ask me, please feel free to contact me. Email is best at first, but if we need to meet, we can always meet through Microsoft Teams as well. So good luck, and I'll talk to you again soon.